Hey, everybody, welcome. Welcome. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen with the great Bill Varney, joining us today on Okuma Wednesday. It's Wednesday. We always talk about some great Okuma products on Wednesday, so stay tuned to the show. We'll show you some cool products from Okuma. Also, we need to do a little business, gang. CCA has a event coming up here, and it's the barbecue on November 10th, and I want to show you a quick little video about that I made with Robbie Gant. It's the 8th annual barbecue for CCA California South LA chapter. And let's see if I got this right here. I think I got a little video for you. Check this out. Tell me what you think. Here we go. The 8th annual barbecue for CCA California South LA chapter. Listen to what Robbie Gant has to say about this.
This is Robbie Gant, the president of your CCA South LA chapter. We have our annual event coming up November 10th at the Compton Hunting and Fishing Club, presented by Marina Del Rey Anglers, the Marina Del Rey Halibut Derby, and supported by LA Run Reel Club, Island Fishing Tackle, Milestone Health and Life Insurance Services, and the Cigar Aficionados Group. The Calabasas Catering Company is going to be hosting our barbecue, so all your food and drinks will be provided. This year's seminar speaker is local sport fishing legend Michael Folks, going to be talking to you about his 12-episode series, The History of Sport Fishing. The event will have a raffle, sign, and a live auction. The live auction will have fishing trips, rods and reels, and even a trust, will, and estate planning. To have a little more fun for the day, we have our casting golf tournament. This event only costs $75 each, or you can buy a table of 10 for $700. That includes all of your food, drinks, casting, golf, and membership to CCA. For more details or to purchase tickets, please visit ccacalifornia.org. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you, Robbie. We'll get as many people there as we can. Gang, the casting golf thing is kind of unique. I didn't quite understand what he meant by that, but you get to cast a golf ball. You get to stand on the edge of the green and cast a golf ball and try to get it in the hole. That sounds pretty exciting for those of us that don't golf but know how to fish. So there's something there for everybody. But at the end of the day, we're supporting CCA, which we need all the support we can get. And Bill Varney's been a part of CCA for a very long time, so I'm sure he has something to add to that. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I guess it's afternoon now, huh?
Yeah, it's the middle of the day, Bill. Wake up. Good morning.
Sleeping over here. Yeah, so I've been to all these different CCA events and barbecues and the golf and fishing trips and all that. So much fun. And the thing is, what's so great is that you get to meet people that you probably have never met before that have all the same interests as you do. So no matter what table you sit at or who you talk to, or when you go up and look at the raffles and figure out what you're going to do there, you meet all kinds of people. And I've met folks there that we go fishing later. So it's a great time. I really suggest everybody go up there and enjoy it. It's a great value for your money. Not only get entertainment while you're there and you get giveaways, but they have fantastic food. So enjoy yourself there and support CCA. It's a great event.
Yeah, when you're supporting CCA, gang, you're basically supporting us. You're basically supporting yourself, because Bill and I talk about this offline all the time. We are hanging on by a string here. It's just the most amazing thing. But I got big announcement, Bill. You're going to love this. About a month ago, I was talking about how they wanted to close the areas at Catalina where the glass bottom boats go, where they feed the fish. Mm-hmm. Well, the Fish and Wildlife shot that down yesterday. I got a news bulletin from my sister who's way involved, and they shot that down. They're not going to close those areas. That they were going to stop you from feeding. This is how crazy this is, Bill. They didn't want you to feed those fish in Pebbly Beach, that cove there that they've been feeding the fish in there since the 1800s. Those fish, they live there for one reason, because they know they're going to get fed. And some green hair decided that was bad for the fish, and they wanted to close it to feeding the fish there on the glass bottom boats. Crazy, but Fish and Wildlife shot it down. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff because of the Sport Fishing Association of California partnering with CCA and you and me and everybody that's talking about it all the time. There's a lot of very, very cool things that are coming down the pipe that are going to emphasize the fact that, hey, they are listening to us now. It's pretty strange, Bill. It doesn't make any sense to you and I, but apparently they put a Band-Aid on the closures of the MLPs. We'll have more about this. We'll post it on our social media platform. But as far as the San Diego extension of the MLPs, apparently what I was told by a very reliable source was that that's on hold for a while. They're not going to expand it this year or next year. So that's kind of cool for all of us that love to fish and fish from the surf. When they close an area, gang, it's not just for the boaters. It's for everyone. And Bill and his buddies couldn't go surf fishing there either. So
absolutely. But you know, it's interesting, Dave, about the feeding the fish situation. You know, like we don't feed the fish anyway. It's called chum. But when you're looking at other animals, so when you're you know, dealing with bears and lions, if you were to live in Africa, and moose and animals like that, you would never want to feed those animals because they get used to human interaction. They get used to human food, which is probably not too good for them. And then they get violent normally as time goes on because they get so aggressive for finding the easy food. Now, so if you were to say, hey, you know, we're limiting what, you know, you can't feed the moose, can't feed the bear, whatever, that's totally understandable. But when it comes to feeding the fish, and I have been all over the world, like when you go to Hawaii and you go to Fiji and you go to South America, so there's a lot of koi there. People have koi ponds and restaurants have them and so forth. They're always feeding them. They never come out of the water and attack humans. And when they don't have enough food, you know what fish do? They find food, okay? They're not like a bear or somebody who becomes almost like a person who's addicted to the local trash can. They move on if they're not fed. So this whole feeding the fish thing is absolutely ridiculous because it makes them more healthy. Because if there was, like, if you threw in all these peas, let's say, and they didn't eat all the peas before they got to the bottom because they sunk too fast or they weren't hungry enough, so many other marine creatures would use that as forage for themselves. So it's not like you're polluting. It's not like you're overfeeding. It's not like you're introducing them to human food and they won't eat natural food anymore. So I'm so glad that they took that perspective and said, we really need to continue to do that because, as you know, Dave, you know, that brings all those fish up to the boat. And I know you've been over to the glass bottom boat because, you know, we all have. I think I was maybe 10 the first time I went on the glass bottom boat in Catalina. And when they threw out the chum, all of these fish I'd never seen before, these big Garibaldi and blue perch and opali and buttermouths came up onto the boat. And for the very first time in my life, I could see them. And it was exciting. It introduced me to the marine environment. So I can't imagine a glass bottom boat where you just drive around and you hope to see a fish.
No, it's ridiculous. I got a great story about part of this, and then we'll get into surf fishing today. But Ron, all the people that have come and visited Kelly Girl and I since we moved down here, we have a beach that we love to go to, Bill, called Chileno Bay. And it's been a reserve forever. And all the snorkel boats, everybody goes there. And we drive over there in our car and we go down to the beach there and we bring big bags of corn tortilla. The ones that they're throwing away, I get them. And they give them to me. And we take corn tortillas down there. And every boat there, all the boats that go there to snorkel, they all feed the fish tortillas. Everybody there is feeding them tortillas. Ron and I were there last Thursday, and I have my 2 big bags of tortillas. I walk right out in the water. I tell everyone the fish know me, but they charge me right when I get there every time, and they know I'm going to feed them tortillas. I had a local woman and her son absolutely read me the riot act, telling me that I am killing the fish. I'm killing them. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not killing anything. Tortillas are poison. And I was like, holy I should be dead then. Because I eat tortillas I have tortillas for breakfast with my eggs. I have corn tortillas. I have tortillas for lunch. And I have tortillas for dinner almost every day down here. And this lady was so angry at me, telling me that I was killing the fish. And then I said, well, they all should be dead then, because I've been feeding them these tortillas right here on this beach for 20 plus years. And the guy, her son, looked at me and said, yes, you've been killing them for 20 years. Crazy.
You know, there is a special place in the for a marine biologist in the Department of Fish and Wildlife for people like that.
Yeah, there is.
No experience, no scientific knowledge, just their emotional feelings on the day that they ate too many tortilla chips and got a stomach ache and couldn't go to sleep at night. So, I mean, you know, if you're feeding them, I think really just about anything that you feed them is not going to hurt them, because it's going to be offset by all of the natural stuff that they eat. Yeah, if you went over there every day and you fed the same fish a donut, maybe there would be an issue. Once again, totally unscientific, you know.
Well, one day, Kelly and I, during the pandemic, you weren't allowed to go to the beach. Remember? Remember? It was living on the sand or some bull crap. So Kelly and I would take the Ponga and we'd go there to the beach where we weren't allowed to go to, and we'd anchor up in like 4 feet of water so we weren't touching the sand. And then we would feed the fish out of the Ponga, and they would eat ketchup. They were starving because there was no boats for like 2.5 months feeding them.
Oh, that's right.
So Kelly and I would go there and hang out and see what they wouldn't eat. You know what they wouldn't eat? Nothing. They ate every single thing we dropped in the water. They were starving to death. It was the craziest time to be alive. Gang, I hope you all enjoy my new camera. I just got back from California. I flew up there yesterday, Bill, and got this new camera for my computer. It looks like it's much clearer on my end. What do you all think?
It looks great. It is really clear. I have got to work on my camera because, of course, it makes my skin look like a...
Yeah, it is. All right. So what's going on in the surf fishing world, Bill?
Well, you know, surf fishing remains good. Over the last week, we did have about 3 days off there with this big wind that we had come out of the northwest. That was, of course, what we, you know, talked about last week on our game plan, and that was what we expected to come into place. And then, of course, this is the season. This is the time of year where we get these storms that come out of the northwest, out of Alaska, basically, blow wind for a couple of days, and then it's followed normally by Santa Ana conditions. So that's exactly what we saw last week. We're back into the calm conditions now. We're going to get back into the little bit of the wind and some rain this weekend. Then we're back into a Santa Ana next week. So this is kind of the pattern we've been in. And so it slowed down fishing for sure over the last few days, particularly when you're talking up north by, you know, Ventura, Santa Barbara County, that zone. It was windier, much windier up there than it is down in San Diego. But other than that, things just keep chugging along.
Yeah, that was some violent weather yesterday and the day before. I spent the night on Al's boat on Monday night and flew home yesterday. And I absolutely was freezing. The water temperature has definitely changed. When I was laying on the boat, you could feel the difference just in the water temperature alone. And it was foggy and rainy and windy. Big swell. And that, just because of what you always tell me, that has to help the guys that are out there fishing today, right? Because it just chummed the hell out of the water.
Well, for sure, it churns up all that stuff on the bottom. The other thing is we have this recovery. Like if you went a little bit farther into the winter, a couple more months, and you have a big blow like this, and of course rain associated with it, water temperature will go down, and then it really won't come back up. We in Santa Barbara this week, we saw the water go from 65 to 59 because of that wind, and now it's rebounded right back up into the low 60s. So that's, you know, this is a time of year where we still see some really good surf fishing for at least through the month of November, and then depending on weather into December before we get, you know, strictly into the perch and the halibut season. So it's still good. There's still people catching, and I've got reports this week of stripers. Really big yellowfin croaker, and particularly up in the South Bay, has been really good. A lot of perch all along the coast, some halibut up in Santa Barbara. So the fish are still biting. You just have to get out there at the right times. And as we talked about last week on the game plan, here's a couple days to miss. And then here are the days you want to be out there and concentrate on it. And we're going to have pretty much the same scenario on this week's game plan, where we're going to say, you're going to lay off a couple of days and watch some games. And then after that, surf fishing is going to be fantastic again.
That sounds perfect. And Bill, you can't believe I've got Carl Air Pelikia coming on the show on Friday. I don't know if you've ever watched any of his videos. The man gets to see more cool stuff than we can even, and you and I get to see cool stuff, but we're going to have Air Pelikia on the show on Friday, gang. So I want to make sure, share this video with everybody you know. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Go to YouTube, gang, because some reason the notifications aren't popping up. But Darren, my good friend Darren, was able to send stars yesterday over on Facebook. So look at your comment section, gang. That's how he was able to do it. So they opened that back up. For some reason, Bill, Facebook's opened everything back up again, and we're allowed to talk over there, and everything's clean again, and everything's good. So make sure that you hit the notification button on Facebook. Just go over there, gang, if you all could, and just sprinkle a handful of stars over there. I'm not asking you for $1 million. Just sprinkle some. Let's see if it all works, because Darren said it worked. Mike Lewis, that should be good for you to get some stars to me and everybody else. But the big thing is YouTube. Because of everybody, Bill, my YouTube subscription base went up over 2,000 this month for new subscribers.
Wow.
And our views are over 1 million for this month, which is insane. So, and it's because of everybody that's helping me. We know we were a little suppressed over there at the F, but now everything's opened up on the F. We had a video yesterday get over 40,000 views, which hasn't happened for a while. So everything's hitting on all cylinders. All social media is working fine for us right now. So let's just keep the ball rolling along. But go to YouTube and hit the notification button, the share, and the like button. It will help us out tremendously. And then you, Bill, you had a plethora of people sign up for your game plans this week, which was pretty cool. So they obviously are loving what you're doing and loving what you're saying. And a lot of our lifetime members signed up. So there's so much going on good in your saltwater guide, gang, and in the fishing industry, and things are opening. Things that we thought were going to get closed aren't being closed. We may be turning the corner here, Bill. Tuesday we might see something really special happen on Tuesday that you and I had no idea what could possibly happen. We may see it happen. It starts to feel like that. I don't know.
Well, absolutely. Hopefully we're making our way around the corner here. It is interesting. I know that the media companies, and I can support them to some respect, is that during this period, during the election period, they wanted to somewhat mitigate the craziness that's out there. And maybe that has something to do with what was going on here. And in that they've really cut the chains and unleashed everybody right now. Kind of makes me wonder if they know more than we know about who's the winners and who's the losers. So that's kind of an interesting thought there. But yeah, we're about ready to turn a corner here, and there's been some great advances made all the way around in the fishing world. Everything's not perfect. We're always going to go up against the people who want to close us down. But as long as we, continue to persevere, I think we're going to be fine.
And be involved. And being involved I'm putting the QR code up. Being involved with CCA, gang, is super important for all of us. And like Robbie Gant said at the beginning of the show, the barbecue's coming up on November 10th, which is going to be a real hoot. And the food's going to be incredible. But every single one of you that fishes anywhere on the planet, you all should be involved in CCA, whether it's in California, Texas, Florida. That's our only voice at the table to keep this fishing thing going and keeping it open. And we need to make sure that we all get to fish. And it seems like for the first time ever, Bill, and I know I've been talking for a while about doom and gloom and they're closing everything, but I had a great report this morning from someone who sits deep inside the inner circle, and they're listening to us. And I believe it's got a lot to do with all the members of CCA. Even though we're not at the membership level we want to be at, we need everybody to help.
You're absolutely right. And, so much credit goes to Wayne himself as the director of CCA. Wayne, way back 8 or 9 years ago when he was appointed and he and I met for the first time, we talked about a strategy of working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Fish and Game Commission, the Ocean Protection Council, the governor, all these different people. My perspective, although most people know me as being pretty calm and collected, it was pretty aggressive, was very aggressive. I've been working on this for the better part of my adult life, and I really was up to here with this whole thing. And Wayne came to me and he said, Bill, he said, if you obviously know that you can get more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. And he said, if you learn to play nice in the playground, there's a really good shot that we're going to get more done than if we just go after everybody and anger them and have our side and their side. So that's the perspective that Wayne has taken over all these years. He spent an amazing amount of time building relationships with everybody in California government and in these organizations, like Department of Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife, and the Fish and Game Commission and the Ocean Protection Council. And by doing that, when he did opinionate on things like, hey, grunion should not be 0, bluefin should not be on the endangered species list, they listened to him. They considered his point of view. And in some cases, we won because of that. So there's so much to be said. And we're so thankful for all the work that Wayne has done. And we know that in order to be successful this over time, we have to continue to grow the CCA membership. And we need to continue to support financially CCA so they can go to all the meetings, they can travel to Washington and Sacramento and all the different places they need to be successful. And along those lines, Newbie Painter, wonderful person, got a hold of me a few weeks ago. We started discussing it. We have now got the go-ahead to provide a bumper sticker or a window sticker with a QR code on it, which will allow you to just take a quick shot of it, put it on the back of your car, your boat, your tackle box, and folks can just take a real quick shot of the QR code. It'll take them right to signing up for $40 a year, nothing for CCA. Once again, you get that quarterly Tide magazine, probably one of the best fishing magazines printed right now. Absolutely excellent articles, incredible pictures on there for just $40. So we're going to work on that. We're going to make those available to everybody on your saltwater guide. And then in general, after that, everybody out there, we're going to ask for a small fee for them. And then we're going to take that money, offset the cost, and then donate the rest back to CCA to help them grow.
Beautiful. Here, check this spinning reel out, and we're going to get deep into fishing here in just a second. But check this out. Because of Okuma, we get to do this show on Wednesdays. So all hail to Okuma. Thank you very much, everybody over there, for being a big sponsor of your saltwater guide. Check out this spinning reel. Bill loves these things.
Hey guys, this is John Bretz with Okuma Fishing Tackle. What I have here is one of the most exciting introductions of the year, the new X Series spinning reel, our flagship spinning reel. And what's amazing about this is Okuma was able to build a reel that's the best of both worlds. You got a tournament bass reel as well as an inshore spinning reel. So both freshwater and saltwater applications, 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 sizing, starting at 7 ounces. Super lightweight, but what's nice about it is it's very rigid. So you want to use it for inshore. It's a lightweight and rigid aluminum body and aluminum side plates. To keep it lightweight, we have our cyclonic flow rotor, which is injected out of C40X. So again, very lightweight, very corrosion resistant. As everybody knows, you want a good drag system. This is equipped with our carbonite drag system. The 2,500 and 3,000 output 22 pounds of max drag. When you get to the 4,000, it outputs 24 pounds of max drag. These are 6.2 to 1 gear ratios, so when you turn that handle, you're picking up a lot of line with every turn. This is accomplished by a machined aluminum, CNC cut AL70 aluminum drive gear. That aluminum drive gear is also anodized, so again, perfect for both fresh and saltwater applications. One of the great features that we have in this is what we call hydroblock body. So these are a set of water seals that prevent water intrusion. So that's going to be a good complement for both freshwater and saltwater applications. The other great thing is you have the machined aluminum handle that can be put on the left or right hand. It threads directly into the drive gear. It's a really thin profile, so lightweight but super strong. The advantage of this for both fresh and saltwater anglers is that when you pull back, there's no back play at all. One is that helps from the one-way roller bearing, but also the screw-in design helps eliminate any of that back play tolerance. Another amazing part of this reel for you inshore anglers is that you'll notice on the bottom there's no on-off selector for the anti-reverse. Why did we do that? That's another source for water to intrude into the reel. So we left that out. The majority of freshwater anglers aren't back and reeling these days, so this is a great addition to this reel that's going to make it really durable for both freshwater and saltwater applications. And the other thing that's really nice is it's a one-piece seamless bail, so there's no area for braided line to hang up in those small little groove connections. This is one-piece connection all the way around. This is an 11 bearing drive reel, so you can expect super smooth performance, super durable, long life performance out of this reel. It starts at a $219 retail for the 2500 size. If you want to find out more details on the new X Series spinning reel, check it out at okumafishingusa.com.
And there you go, gang. There's the way to get to the QR code right there. You guys can jump over there or go to Okuma Fishing Products, or go to okuma.com and you'll find out all about all the products that they have over there. That's all I use. I use Okuma products every single day, and all my videos you see me catching fish on, it's always Okuma. What do you got there, Bill?
Hey, that is a great reel, and that reel is so well matched up with this rod. So this is the Okuma, I got to read the name, Rockaway XP. So this is this has been out on the market about a year and a half or so. It's a very light rod, as you can see. It has no rod covering or cork on the bottom there, so it's just the rod, enough on the bottom here to hang on to. This is an 8-foot rod made up of course, 2 pieces like this. You can see the pieces, how simple they are. Of course, simple to go together, easy to take apart. And if you weigh this rod, which I did when we were watching that commercial, 4.4 ounces. So you take this rod, you match it up to that 6-ounce reel, you have less than 11 ounces you're holding on to. And if you're fishing a 3/4 ounce sinker with your line and all that, is probably as heavy as the rod and reel combo. So Okuma, the Rockaway XP. I like to fish an 8.5 footer myself, but others may like to fish a 9 or 9.5 footer at the beach. Super light, super easy to carry on the beach. Fantastic Okuma product. Really like it.
I love their products. So, Bill, you sent me a handful of pictures today. We're going to start with this one. Tell us what we got here.
So this is a nice big yellowfin croaker, and that's one thing that we've seen in the last week. Well, really, it's been about 3 weeks now in the South Bay, really Palos Verdes all the way to Santa Monica. These big yellowfin croaker out there. Now, I have a friend she was one of the best lure fishermen in the ocean I've ever seen. Haven't seen her in a few years, so hopefully she's still out there. And I've seen her catch an 8-pound yellowfin croaker. So this one's probably about 3 pounds. Believe it or not, there's some really big ones out there. This was caught on a sand crab, but if you're going to fish about a 1/2 ounce crocodile, 1/2 ounce Castmaster, fantastic lure to cast out and retrieve back in the surf for yellowfin.
And that fish is so closely related to the white sea bass, except I believe the meat is way tastier than a white sea bass. That's just me though. But man, when you fillet that fish up, you're just going to go, wow, look at that. And when that meat hits heat, it turns snowball white. It's a good eating fish. I know you're not much into killing them. You like to throw them back, but if Dave Hansen goes down there, we're taking some of those home.
Hey, those are delicious eating. All the croaker, really all the surf fish in general, even some of the sharks are really good. But those yellowfin croaker and the spotfin croaker and a corbina, of course, they're in the white sea bass family. Now think of it this way, everybody. If you had a pig or what they call a hog, or you had a cattle and you fed it sand crabs and clams its whole life, of course its meat tastes good. It's not out eating moss or trash off the bottom. So that's one of the reasons that's in large part their meat is really white, has a lot to do with what they eat. And that is mostly some worms, a lot of clams, tons of clams, and a lot of sand crabs. Now that's a zebra perch. Zebra perch, we catch those up and down the coast. They're beautiful perch. I've seen them as far as Santa Barbara to the Mexican border. I'm sure they go below the Mexican border. And that's kind of a little bit of a colder water fish. And you'll always find those feeding and living and foraging near structures. So wherever you've got a rock offshore or pilings or a jetty or a harbor entrance, you want to fish those edges right where the rocks meet the sand underwater. That's where those zebra perch are going back and forth and feeding. That's
my buddy Adam that runs the Castigo, and they're big time bluefin fishermen. He sent you and me a picture a couple weeks ago. They were at San Clemente Island catching flying fish for bait, and they caught one of those in the net, and they had no idea what it was. I didn't know what it was. I sent the picture to Bill, and they're at San Clemente Island in literally 60, 70 feet of water on the front side of the island catching flying fish, and they caught this guy. Crazy, right?
It is crazy, but you know, Dave, you never know what to expect in the ocean. I mean, I can think of a lot of examples, but one of the classics was trolling for marlin, huge marlin lure off the East Cape, right up the road from you at Lighthouse there. And we caught about a 2-pound pompano on trolling on marlin lures. So you never know.
Yeah, we caught like a 4 or 5 pound Dorado the last day of the Bisbees on a marlin lure that was probably 2 feet long. Crazy little baby Dorado. You couldn't even see him. We knew we were bit because the lure quit acting right, but when we wound it in, you couldn't even see him because the skirt of the lure was hanging all over him. You didn't even know he was in there. Pretty wild stuff. What do you got going on right here? Is this your calendar for 2025?
Yeah. Yep. So the calendar just came out yesterday to 108 stores, all the landings over the next probably week and a half. You can order your copy today at surffishtackle.com. If you're on my newsletter mailing list, which will go out this Friday, most likely, go out Friday morning, there'll actually be a discount code on there where you can even save a little bit more money. So that's this year's calendar. It's insane. It's got some beautiful, it's got dates, it's got world records, it's got all the tides in it, it's got the moon phases, it's got tips on everything from catching rockfish to getting an IGFA record on your fish and everything in between. And of course, for those who really want something to talk about at the cocktail party, if you look right up there at the top below September, if you put that on again, where it says September 2023, right below that on every page is a famous fishing saying. And if you want to seem like you're brilliant on a long range trip, memorize a few of those. One of my favorites, and I think that might be the one that's up there, it's quote unquote, "I'd rather be fishing, Jimmy L. Glass from the Louisiana Electric Chair." So there's some good ones out there.
Yeah, I bet he'd rather be. So what we're looking at here, why I put that up there, this is 2023. Probably some of the sponsors and stuff changed on Bill's calendar. That's not what we're talking about. I want you to look at, let's just say the 13th, for example. Mm-hmm. You'll see that squiggly blue line in there. I want Bill to explain to everybody what this is like the gospel for most of us that fish, even on our yachts when we're offshore. We're using Bill's calendar. Talk about that squiggly blue line for a minute.
Yeah, you know, the tides on the calendar are so important to fishing. In the surf fishing world, tide, other than a sharp hook, tide is number one. You really have to get in touch with the tides and figure out when the best tides to go. And then if you look at a graph like this, it's easy for you to graph out, and especially on the calendar, not only this week or this month, but the entire year. You can look at days like the 23rd on there where I'm going shopping that day. And you can look at days like the 15th on there where I'm fishing both in the morning and in the evening. So that really helps you. And then of course, on that day, the 14th, And we have the 13th, but the next day, the 14th, that's a new moon. You can see the moon is filled in there, which means no moon. That's when the the moon, well, and the sun too, are going to be their closest to Earth, which is going to give us some of our largest tidal changes. So these tides help you in the surf. They help you in the bay. Tides are really important in the bay. And of course, they help you offshore. You've got to know your tides offshore. If you go offshore and you're fishing at Catalina and there's no current at all, and you can't figure out why, and you look at your tide chart and you're at the peak of high tide right now, or you're at the peak of low tide where no water's moving one way or the other, that answers your question right away. I know that Justin and Fernando look at this, and then they figure out based on that when they think the halibut when they think fish are going to bite, or when they think lobster are going to walk around on the bottom. So it's all really, really helpful regardless of what type of fishing you do. And then, of course, if you like walking on the beach and collecting shells or looking at rocks that are often underwater, you can look at those tide charts and figure that out too.
Yeah, no, the thing is like the gospel. Like I said, we use it all the time. I got turned on to it from Pete over at Let's Talk Hookup. He turned me on to your calendar once when I was in studio one time, and ever since then. And then I remember the first time I finally got to sit down and talk to you. I know you probably don't remember. You talk to a million people all the time, but we were at the Long Beach. No, we were at the Del Mar show, and you were hanging out, and I was like, oh my God, it's him. And I wanted to know about surf fishing. And gang, even me, I don't know anything about surf fishing. I sat down with Bill, and I'll tell you what, Bill was so kind to me. He sat and talked to, I don't know, you probably don't remember, but we sat and talked for a good hour and a half. And there was a million people at the show, and they all wanted some of Bill, but you stopped. I mean, you shook hands as they walked by and stuff, but you spent the time with me and made me understand what the hell you were doing. And that's when I fell in love with you. And Kelly will tell you, I came home and I'm like, oh my God, I met Bill Varney, Kelly. And she goes, you hear him every day on the show. What are you talking about? I go, no, the guy's super cool. And he sat down and explained it all to me. And it was so fun to learn about why I wasn't catching anything. Because I thought surf fishing, and gang, I'm sorry, I'm geeking out right now, but I thought surf fishing, what I grew up doing, everybody I knew, you had the longest fishing pole you could find. You had to be like 14, 15 feet long. You had to have a big spike, and you shoved it in the dirt or the sand. And then you casted that thing out as far as you could. And then you sat and waited in your beach chair for the bell to go off. And oh my God, did I learn a ton from you. And then I was like in. Because when you talk to Bill and you learn about surf fishing, all of a sudden I love to fish, and I don't know if anybody can tell, but I got ADD. So I can't sit in a beach chair and stare at a rod. When Bill taught me that you can walk up and down the beach and all the fish are swimming around your ankles, the whole world changed for me that day, Bill. The whole thing changed.
Exactly. And you know, it's so funny is that you can really just get 2 or 3 really basic tips and apply those things, and it allows you to really move forward, you know. And everybody who's on our game plan is a member of your saltwater guide and is part of the surf fishing game plan. You know, we're going to talk more about what we're going to take for each individual to be better at surf fishing, and how we're going to do that is not only we have these weekly game plans and these fish reports and that we talk on Wednesday, but we've also adding to that next month, we're going to begin our Zoom meeting. So we're going to have a monthly Zoom meeting in the evening that everybody can get on, that everybody can ask their own questions, that we can answer all their questions, learn that way. And then it looks like in February, don't have the date set yet, but sometime in February, we're going to have our first on the beach clinic with everybody who is a saltwater guide member for my section of the surf fishing section. You'll be invited down there to the beach. We'll have all the bait and snacks and stuff, and we'll go fishing. We'll learn right on the sand. So we're really looking forward to that. And it looks like, you know, we're going to go maybe one more week here where we're allowing folks that are already, you know, members or watching today on your saltwater guide to sign up for it for $100 one-time fee to get into my section. In about a week and a half, that's going to change where it's going to be $100 a year. So now's the time. If you want to jump in, jump in now. Now's the time. And we have a really great group, and that group is growing every day. And I really can't wait to get down on the beach and do some fishing together.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize that enough, gang. Bill's telling the honest to God truth. Come November, what's the date? The 8th?
It was, I think, November 7th.
7th. That's when everything's going to change, gang. We made this available for everybody, one-time purchase for the year, but you can still get in. If you guys, if you're on the fence, you're like thinking, or if you're tired of sucking when you go surf fishing and you want, this is it's all going to be gone on the 7th of November. It's going to go to $100 a year instead of $100 lifetime. So the members that are already in, you're in. It's not going to change for you. Just like when I did the $4.99, I probably have, out of the 4,500 members that we have, probably 2,500 of them are still on the $4.99 a month. So take advantage of this, gang. Bill and I would be stoked if you didn't. And if you wanted to jump into the $100 a year plan later on the 7th, that would tickle us. But we're trying to help you out right now. Get into the $100 lifetime. Get in there, get it done, get it over with. I mean, $100. You can't even go to McDonald's for $100 anymore.
Really, and especially if you get sick.
Yeah. So you sent me a handful of pictures. We're going to end with the last picture, which I did about 10 years ago. I did a show with Phil Freeman Adventures, about that last picture you sent me, and I got a bunch of crap from the industry for talking about it, even though it's known for most people. Bill, we'll bring that up at the end, and we'll show that drum laying there, and we'll talk about that. But this picture, what's this all about?
So this is one of the pictures that is inside just an example of one of the photographs that's in the calendar. So you can get an idea of some of these beautiful, amazing photographs that we have. And you've got that one, and then you've got another one, which is a dolphin fish, mahi dorado, underwater, just a beautiful photograph. You know, we searched really the world to find these photographs, and we do have over half a dozen of the top photographers in the United States, most of which are on the West Coast, their photography. And we always scan, social media, people send us photographs and all that. But whenever you have a photograph that you're going to put on a calendar, and certainly a photograph that's going to be big on the wall, and it's going to be there for an entire month, you're always looking for a specific look on the photograph. You want the light to be correct. You want the colors to be bright. We use a 12-color Heidelberg press, about a $6 million press, in order to print these calendars. So you want really bright colors. You want an angler, there are anglers in the photograph, who looks like they're having fun, has a smile on their face. You don't want any blood on the fish. All of these things we look at. So we go through literally thousands of photographs every year to be able to come up with, 12 to 20 photographs that are going to end up in the calendar. And one of the most important things about these photographs is not only do they have to be eye-catching, but they have to be fresh. We are not going to use photographs that have been floating around that people have seen before. We try to get everything that's fresh. So when you turn the page and you look at the photograph for the first time, you're like, whoa, that's a.
Oh, yeah. Well, those pictures are phenomenal. The clarity and the color is just whammo. But yeah, if you come up into the wheelhouse of most sport boats when you're out fishing, you see Bill Barney's calendar hanging on someone's wall or laying on their dash, because a lot of us, we're watching that tide. That tide is super important. But then you got that beautiful picture there too. It all works together. Bill knows how to do it. Bill knows what to put together. You've been making these calendars for a very long time. And
yeah, I think this is our 10th year. And it all started because Bill Rucker did it I think he did it for 17 years. And I always bought his calendar for the same reason. I can't remember if they had tides in them. I'll have to look back. But I always bought his calendar, and then Bill just decided to retire. And the fella who distributed calendars called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Bill, I want to put you in the calendar business." And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But luckily, I got hooked up with the right people, incredible graphic artists, Tom and Sherry Waters, just incredible artists, very creative everywhere from the illustration standpoints to layout and verbiage and all of those things. Just so lucky to have them as part of our team. And so here's just another year's gone by.
It's hard to believe that we're already at 2 more days. We're in November. Tomorrow's Halloween, big event in Cabo, boy. They go all out down here for Halloween.
It
But
is so wonderful down there on Halloween. And then Dias de Muerto, the next day. So I go down there on, I've been down there a lot in November. That's one of my favorite fishing times down there. And I'm down, on the Malecon there, right by, not far from you, Dave. And I go out on Halloween night. I come downtown on Halloween night to go out to dinner probably. And we had to park a ways away from where we were. It wasn't down by the harbor. It was inland a bit. And there were literally thousands of kids in their costumes, Superman, you name it, wrestling costumes, with their mom and dad carrying a little bucket going door to door on Halloween, just like we used to do here in the United States like 30 years ago, before everybody was scared to go out. Now they go to malls. Well, down there, they still go door to door. It's so beautiful. All the children just having such a good time and stuff. And then the next day is the day where they honor the dead. I never really understood that, Dave, until I went down on the Malecon for the first time. There are dozens of easy ups with kids, basically high school age kids, with pictures of the Lord, of Jesus Christ, and pictures of their family who have passed away over time, with little shrines and flowers and sayings to them, praising not only the Lord, but also praising the life of all of their relatives who are no longer with them. It was such a beautiful thing. And personally, at my age, for me to see young people that believe in Christianity, know the importance of morality and all these things down there. Once again, it was like going back 40 years ago in the United States. It really is a special time this week down there.
Yeah, the amount of children out on the streets is incredible. They closed the main road down here around the marina. They closed that off at 7:00 at night, and you can't even see the road. There's so many thousands and thousands of children, and they're dressed, and they're the most polite little children you've ever seen. The family's polite. Everybody is just out doing the family thing, which is pretty spectacular to see. Mm-hmm. Kelly and I have made quite a few videos, and last year we had 35 pounds of candy, and we gave that away, and we were done in 10 minutes. 35 pounds of candy were gone in 10 minutes. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. We're looking forward to tomorrow night. Super excited about it. But right now, gang, we're going to drop a bombshell on y'all. I don't know how this is going to go over. The industry hates when we talk about this, but you're not going to get it. You're not going to understand it. You have to all understand. Back in before 1955, California didn't use landfills. What they did was they dumped all garbage, not just some, not just picking parts, all garbage went into the ocean. I know it's hard to imagine. Bill and I grew up at a time, life was way different. There was a place called Tin Can Beach. It's now Seal Beach. But when you would drive by there in your car when we were kids, Bill, remember the cans? The tin cans were stacked up as high as a two-story building, 20 feet high of tin cans. As kids, we didn't know how these tin cans got there. We didn't know, well, tin cans float. So when these giant barges would push all the trash, and if you look on your chart plotter, gang, you're going to see off of Point Furman, you're going to see a round circle called the dumping ground. Not the one way off the beach where you'd fish tuna. Not that dumping ground. This one was 3 miles off the beach, off of Long Beach, LA Harbor, right off of Point Furman. And that's where they dumped all the garbage. Now, the tin cans floated, and they would float up on the beach because prevailing wind and current goes. I know a lot of people are going, crap, Dave? Well, Bill and I are here to tell you we were alive and we saw it with our own eyes. But one of the worst things that was going on that nobody, and today they still don't want to talk about this. This is the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen. There was a couple of chemical companies back in the day. I don't want to get sued, but they're the biggest chemical companies in the world right now. They're still active. They took these drums, 55-gallon drums, loaded them on barges, and went out there and pushed these things into the ocean. 55-gallon metal drums. I don't know if you've ever seen metal react with the ocean and salt water, but it dissolves. This is what we got laying all over the bottom of the ocean. You're not even going to believe this. And that ring around there is probably some of the most hottest toxic crap you've ever seen in your life, gang. This isn't one. There's thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of these, right, Bill?
So absolutely. One of the issues is the major question of how many are there and where are they? And so if we could just go back in time a little bit, I can give kind of everybody an overview of how this whole thing came about. So the original group, let's say, who started dumping really nasty stuff into the ocean, because if you went back prior to 1972, basically, the basic knowledge was, and they weren't doing it to hurt anybody, was that we've got these really noxious chemicals besides the trash, but we've got these really noxious chemicals. We have nowhere really to put them on land. And if we drop them into deep water in the ocean, they're going to be away from everything. We don't really have anything to worry about. So the instigator of all this was the U.S. Navy. They were probably the very first ones. And I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't somewhere around the First World War, so around 1915 to 1920, in that realm, that they were dumping stuff off the side of these boats or barges in this case. And then as time went on and other companies had not only DDT, which is what we're going to see in this canister, but other effluents, which they would use like drilling mud, which has PCBs in it, different hydrocarbon products, which were used for drilling for oil in California and so forth. They were put in these barrels, and then these barrels were taken off the coast to what was to be a specific area. They were pushed off of the barges. Then they would take a shotgun and they would shoot the barrel because it floated. And of course, they couldn't have the barrel open with the top open because the chemicals in it were so caustic that it would be wouldn't be good for the mariners taking them out. So they'd push them off the side, shoot them with a shotgun, it would fill full of water and sink to the bottom. It had long been thought that there was just a few of these at the bottom, but really what started the entire process was Montrose Chemical Company, who has long been out of business, prior to 1972, was just taking DDT, which was a byproduct of what they were producing down in Torrance, and they were just putting it right into the sewer system. So prior to 1972, and it really even today to some extent, but prior to that period of time, anytime that you had these effluents in your company, they would basically just be flushed down the toilet essentially and go into the sewer system. Well, the system that we had back in those days was we had the Hyperion plant in El Segundo. Later, we were to have a Hyperion plant that was built in the Talbot Marsh in Huntington Beach. All of this effluent would come to them. They would use a screening process where they would screen out the larger things. So like pieces of plastic, bottle tops, things that wouldn't break down. That would go out into what was like a shallow lake around them, which the water would evaporate. They would bulldoze it into a pile, put it in a truck, take that effluent away to the desert somewhere. And then all of the rest, all the raw sewage, not treated whatsoever, would just be pumped directly into the ocean. As a matter of fact, off of El Segundo, there is as much as 880 million gallons of raw sewage a day that was being pumped prior to 1972. From 1888 to 1972, as much as 800 million gallons a day was being pumped out there. So Montrose where they would pump it into the sewer. That sewer line went underneath Palos Verdes and then came out roughly 3 miles from shore off of White's Point near Abalone Cove there in Palos Verdes. And they just pumped that raw DDT out there, and it just covered the bottom out there. So that was the first discovery. And scientists went out and looked at it. They actually tried to mitigate it by covering it with sand originally, and it just percolated right to the top of 6 feet of sand. Then they put rocks on it. They've tried a bunch of different things, but it still percolates and moves around down there. In the meantime, Dr. Valentine from UC Santa Barbara got some inside information about the possibility of these 50-gallon drums being on the bottom. He got a grant for that. They went out on a barge. They sent the rover down. These drums that we see in this photograph, for example, are at 3,000 feet deep. And of course, the thought back then was that we drop them in such deep water, you know, they'll never affect anything else, and nothing's living down there anyway. And so they sent the drone down there, and they started, you know, filming them basically. And in the small circumference of the area that they looked at so far, they estimate that there are 70,000 of these drums. We are thinking there's maybe more, like 120,000 of them. I have been on the DDT committee with the state of California now for about 3 years. I'm the citizen scientist there, the recreational angler. So I get to give my opinion on different things. And then, of course, we have this giant group of scientists who work to figure out what's going on down there. So first of all, they found all of these DDT. And the sampling that they've done, what they have found is that the DDT has now become DDH, which what that is that as DDT breaks, so DDT is made it with a number of different chemicals. And then as DDT breaks down, those chemicals separate. So you have pockets of PCBs, of heavy metals, of sulfur, of different things. So that's the first thing that they found. The second thing that we found, and although they haven't had any money for investigations, is there's more than one site. I was diving in 1975 right off of the Redondo barge in 200 feet of water, and saw the same thing right off of the barge there, right on the edge of the cliff of the Redondo Canyon. So I know that they were dumping them out there also. So what's really interesting about this is that the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the EPA and so forth, rather than them looking at this issue and saying, hey, we need to go out and clean this up, and then once it's cleaned up, we can go back and do the research as to how it happened, if it's in fish, what fish is it in, are people eating these fish? They are doing the exact opposite of that. They've spent 2 years now and millions of dollars on studies of basically how much is there in general, but more importantly, its effect on fish, and particularly white croaker, which we know as tomcod, skate, and bat rays, because they basically feed on the bottom, and they are pelagic in the sense that they don't stay in one place, they move around. So they could eat something that has DDT in one location and then swim 10 miles into the beach and somebody catches them and eats them. So they've done a bunch of research on that. They're finding out that all of these fish have some DDT or one of the chemicals in it that breaks down out of that DDH. So they're working on that. It does make me a little bit nervous from the standpoint that that if you had a hole in your boat, for example, and your boat was leaking, you would not first go and try to figure out how you got a hole in your boat. You would fill up the hole first, and then once you knew it was safe, you would go back and try to figure out how it happened. So for us to put the cart in front of the horse by looking at the fish and the marine environment around it and seeing what the effect has been on it versus just going and mitigating it first and then going back and figuring out how to clean up the rest of it or how it happened, I'm not really sure why they're doing that. And what makes me a little bit nervous about it is that in our last meeting a couple of days ago, they talked about specific different fish that are all inshore fish that have been affected by the DDT in the sense that they've got it in their meat. And what makes me nervous about that is, although they've said that from our testing so far, it does have some effect on female hormones. and reproductive factors for both humans and animals, but it's very, very slight at this point. But when they talk about fish that way, that gives them the opportunity to come back in the future and say, we can't particularly mitigate this big problem with the DDT, so we're going to make it off limits to keep Corbina or spotfin or yellowfin croaker or skates and rays. So we're a little bit worried about the approach they're taking, and we want to try to push them more if we can to actually get out there and mitigate it. So when I talk to them about mitigation, about the procedure needed to mitigate it, they say, well, we haven't looked into that at all. You know, we're afraid these things are going to break apart. It'll be all over. We maybe want to just leave them on the bottom. And I try to explain to them that we don't want to do that, for the simple reason that if we had a seismic change in our currents, these barrels could be rolled around and then that stuff's right out into the water column. If we had an earthquake, that could happen. If there was a tsunami, that could roll 50,000 cans along the bottom, 50-gallon drums, and let that stuff out. So it really needs to be mitigated. I've got my own ideas how to do that. I think I could successfully do it actually fairly quickly, but we're not at that stage now. We're still talking about its effects on fish. Then they'll talk about its effects on human. Then at some point they'll make a decision on how to mitigate it, if they're going to mitigate it at all.
Well, here's my thought on that whole thing. These things are made, for lack of a better, those of you that want to try to understand it, 55-gallon drums made out of metal with the way they seal the tops up doesn't really seal them. If you took a 55-gallon drum that was open and then you sealed it with whatever they sealed it with after you filled it up with this highly toxic chemical and then threw it down on the bottom of the ocean, and let's say they did it, let's just say 50 years ago for an easy round number. Take a can, put it in the bottom of the ocean for 50 years, and then go try to pick it up. The thing's going to fall apart. It's just going to disintegrate. So I understand what you're saying, Bill, but let's be real and let's be honest. There's no way to get them back. And let's just say that there's 100,000 for fun. Let's just use that number. You're not going to get them. The money that you're going to spend to try to get one off the bottom, the minute you touch it, it's going to fall apart. 99.9% of the garbage that's in them is already gone. It's already been, and you and I watched those videos where they shot them with shotguns to get them to sink. Gang, the most ludicrous crap you've ever seen. This is what we did, though. This is how America treated the ocean back then. We don't treat it like that anymore, but we treated the ocean as our own personal garbage can. All other countries, except for the United States, still do. Still use the ocean as a trash can. We're the only country that doesn't anymore. But I don't think you can go and get these things out of the ocean. I just don't, thinking of it as a logical human being, the cans, they look like cans right now because they're laying there undisturbed. But the minute you touch it with a claw, you can't get these things off the bottom in 3,000 feet of water without touching them with something mechanical. It's going to crush, it's going to fall all apart. That's just my thought. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've seen what salt water does to metal, and it's not good. It's the electrolysis alone would have eaten those things to pieces.
Well, you know, the first thing that you have to remember, Dave, for sure, is that you can try to go and lift some of this stuff off the bottom, but there's no way you'll get all of it, first of all. But you will be able to mitigate more damage that has been done. And you're right. The question is, first of all, the cost. Think about the cost of going to 3,000 feet and taking 100,000 barrels off the bottom. If we didn't send all this money to these people in Europe to fight wars, and we could use that money here, we wouldn't have needed even a portion of the billions that we spent. I bet you $1 billion could get it cleaned up, but it's going to cost some money. And then the other thing is, like you said, all of those canisters are very fragile. So not only is it an issue with sending a claw or something down there to pick them up, but also if you have a strong current. Dr. Valentine just today was telling me that one of their concerns is that sea whales have a tendency to burrow in the mud at depths of that deep, and they could go down in an area to burrow there and kick up into the water column these huge amounts of DDT. So that's all a worry. And I noticed that, you know, there's a comment on there. Well, you know, what is my idea how to mitigate some of this? Well, this would be my idea how to do it. Dave is exactly right. You cannot send down a magnet or a claw or something to grab these things and bring them up to the surface, because not only is that metal lost most of its rigidity, but also you have a 3,000-foot distance to get that up to the surface, and there's a good chance it's going to be giving off the DDT on the way. So the way that I envisioned it was basically like a giant Ziploc bag that's upside down with the opening on the bottom where the soil is, and it has a air hose attached to it, where it would go down to 3,000 feet and it would go over. They could use like a cabling system on the lip of it, so it goes over maybe a 10-foot circumference and where the canister is, and then the hose that goes to it from the ship is a vacuum. It sucks the canister and some of the sand around it and soil around it into the bag. The bag closes on the bottom. They turn the vacuum around to put air in the bag, and that will bring it to the surface. And then it can be lifted onto the ship, and that individual drum can be taken off. So that's probably the most effective way and the least expensive way to do it. But once again, you're looking at doing that process somewhere between 70,000 and 150,000 times. If you could, I mean, just do the math. If you could do 10 in a day, it would take you 10 years to get them all up here. So it's a really big job. And besides the, got to worry about what fish it's in. We don't want to eat those. And we got to worry about how many there are. We really have to work on, and we got to worry about how to get rid of them if we're going to, but we've also got to work on, and most importantly, figuring out where they are, because I guarantee you, Dave, they're not just at the dump site. They are all over the place. When these barges went out every single day. And how do we know this? Because they kept paper records. Those paper records were found at the Los Angeles Library in downtown Los Angeles. And they found those records, and those records were handwritten records from the different barge companies of exactly how many canisters and what was in them, and basically what day they took them offshore. So what we know is, we know that there was over 1,000 canisters a day for decades thrown into the ocean. But what we don't know is where. And the reason we don't know where is because, hey, Dave, if you and I were going offshore 20 miles to the dumping ground, and we went outside the harbor and the wind was blowing 20 knots, we'd probably go 2 miles and dump them. And that's what happened. And that's why we're finding them by the Redondo Canyon and other places like that.
But here's something that we don't live in this fantasy world anymore, gang. None of those canisters haven't been violated. There's none of them that are down there that are sealed anymore. The stuff's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that was in them, that stuff's long gone. If you live in a fantasy world where you think stuff's been laying on the bottom for 50 years and it's still sealed, there was no plastic when they did this. So they're not sealed. These are metal. These are made out of metal. Their electrolysis alone ate them up. There's nothing. It's laying there on the bottom, like in this picture. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. The whole bottom of that can is gone. The whole bottom of that's gone. You can tell by that circle around it. All the stuff that was in there is gone. It's an empty can laying on the bottom, gang. Let's just be totally honest, Bill. There's nothing in those cans. Wherever you find them at, they're empty. There's nothing in them anymore. They can't be. It's an impossibility. If you don't change the zincs on your boat every 6 months, you won't have a propeller. And it's not magic. It's just the thing. There's so much electricity in the ocean that is going to eat away the metal. So I'm sorry, Bill.
No, Dave, I agree.
product.
I agree. I mean, there's some that's maybe got a little more than in others. But the thing is when those canisters are on the bottom like that, and they've been there for that long and they're in that deep of water, first of all, the metal's like the thickness of your skin, okay? Super thin. There's very little left of it. And I'll give you a really good example of the whole deal with what's going on with those canisters. I used to work on the bait barge in Redondo Beach, and this buddy of mine was a diver, and one of our bait slammers, the bottom was gone out of it. So he would put his tank on and he would dive through that so the harbor patrol wouldn't see him because it was totally against the law. And he would go down and he'd get all these fishing rods down there, because a lot of people take the rental boats out there, and Bonita would bite their, put an anchovy out, and they'd put their rod down to get a sandwich, and poosh, off the rod went. It was wrapped around all the chains down there. The first time he came up with a batch like this big, it must have been like 40 rods. Well, one of the things he found down there was, so this was like about 1970. It was from a wallet that a police officer had dropped probably a decade before that. And it had his badge in there and his wallet closed. So he brought it up to the surface. And we opened up his, we opened it up. Oh, look, it's a badge, and I might have had his ID in there probably. And we opened it up where the money was. And he looked at the money. There was $100 bill in there. And you looked at it, it was in perfect condition until you touched it. And when you touched it, it was gone. It was almost like ash blowing away. So that's the thing with these canisters on the bottom. Because there's so little current and water movement down there that they can keep that exoskeleton basically for quite a while until such time where it's going to collapse upon itself. And that's why it's so deceiving. You look at it, oh, the barrel's there. It's in perfect condition. It's not. It's the thickness of your skin.
Yeah, exactly. So it is sad that it happened. But we don't do that kind of garbage anymore. We learned. Back in the day, we used the ocean as a trash can, but we learned that's not what to do. We're just trying to let everybody know that there's all kinds of different things out there. We're not the problem. The guys with the rod and reel walking down the beach, flicking a sand crab out there, we're not the problem. We never have been. We never will be. The only reason they come after us is because we're the lowest hanging fruit on the tree and we won't agree on anything. I got people here right now that are probably pissed off that we're talking about it because they're trying to explain to us how it's a good thing to dump all that crap in the ocean. But that's just how fishermen are. We won't agree on anything. We will fight each other in front of all these people that want to close everything and just make it simple for them to close it.
Yeah, that's really true. There's a ballot measure in Colorado here to do what California did, which make it illegal to hunt mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats. And they need to be managed. There's no question about it. They need to be managed. They get overpopulated. They get this brain wasting disease, and it could wipe out the entire species here in Colorado. But the people fighting to make it illegal, they have gone out and found on YouTube or something, somebody shooting a mountain lion out of a tree, not a very good shot, have to run after it in a creek and shoot it a couple more times. They love us fighting like this. It's fodder for their commercials.
Exactly. And Bill and I fight so hard to keep fishing open for all of you. We just got to start agreeing on everything. And I feel really good after my phone call this morning with the people on the inner circle saying that some of the stuff we've been fighting is actually we're winning the battle, which has not happened for us for a very long time. So that made me feel really good. But we just wanted to let you guys know about, because Bill sits on that committee and this stuff is real, what's going on out there. But I don't really know if there's a way to fix it. It's one of those things that we did that weren't right. Using the ocean as a trash can wasn't right either, but we did it. We did it for a very, very long time. And I saw so many comments from so many old timers like you and I, Bill, that remember when they were kids, their parents taking them to Tin Can Beach.
Yeah, that's right.
And I didn't even know what caused that Tin Can Beach when I was a kid until I got older and I looked on the chart plotter on the boat I was running, and I started to put the whole puzzle together about the dumping grounds. And then I watched, and that's what I was doing while we were talking. I was looking at some other videos on YouTube. You can look at these videos, gang, of on YouTube. They have them where LA used the ocean as a trash can for so long, and you can see these barges had these big bulldozers on them. So all the trash trucks would come down from the city and dump all the garbage on these barges, and then they would push it off. Hey, I got to go pick up Cubby. I totally forgot. Love you all. I got to go. Bye.